everybody in design and construction knows that it's important to collect waivers of lien when periodic payments are made, but lien waivers are very misunderstood, particularly where I live in Illinois, because the Lien Act is not just about lien claims. What people need to understand is that the Illinois Mechanics Lien Act is prescriptive. It sets out a process that a variety of different parties who are involved in design and construction need to abide by. It's particularly important for project owners to understand the requirements of the Illinois Mechanics Lien Act if they want to avoid some of the perils that come along with mechanics liens, like having to pay for the same work twice. I discussed this in other videos, so I won't go too deeply here. But I will say that Illinois project owners, at least on private projects, need to understand that the Mechanics Lien Act will provide certain red lights and certain green lights for when they can and cannot make payments. And when you are collecting payment documents from a contractor or a design professional on a monthly basis, you need to understand what it is that you're looking for. And it's not just good enough to collect a piece of paper that says lien waiver on the top. You need to be concerned about the content of that document. You need to be concerned with what is the form of lien waiver that you're receiving. And there are 3 specific forms of lien waiver that I'm going to cover today. But before I get into that, I want to make the point that if you are only focused on collecting lien waivers, then you have skipped an important step, because the Illinois Mechanics Lien Act requires project owners to collect sworn statements from the parties that they hire for design and construction services. And these sworn statements are going to be a snapshot of what their contract looks like at that moment. What was the original amount of the contract? What were the change orders? What is the adjusted contract amount? If there are subcontractors under a general contractor, the same information. What was their contract originally? How has it been changed? How much have the parties been paid? How much are they remaining to be paid? Because it is the content of those sworn statement documents that informs a well-advised owner what the content of the lien waivers ought to be. And that's true regardless of the form of lien waiver. And there's 3 in Illinois that are commonly used, although they're not much understood. And the first one that I want to talk about is perhaps the least understood, and that is the waiver of lien to amount. Okay? There are 3 kinds: waiver of lien to amount, waiver of lien to date, and final lien waiver. The waiver of lien to amount has language in it which says that the party that's being paid is giving up their right to make a lien claim on a private project for the amount of money that is listed in the lien waiver. And so where is this commonly used? Oftentimes at the beginning of the project, if a party requires a down payment, $20,000 at the time of contract signing, but there's been no work done to date, it's appropriate to collect a waiver of lien to amount. But when you move into the project and you begin to have monthly payment applications, what you commonly see is a switch to the waiver of lien to date form. Now, that's not always true. There are instances where it would make sense to collect a waiver of lien to amount at various points throughout the project other than just at the outset. But it is common for contractors' payment applications, for example, to request a certain amount of payment for the work that they have done up to a certain date. And it's common for the contractor to offer up to the owner not just that sworn statement that is so very important, but also waiver of lien in the form of waivers of lien to date, because they are giving up their right to claim a lien for the work that they did up to the date of the application for payment. Now, the third kind is probably the easiest to understand. That is the final waiver of lien. And of course, the final waiver of lien is what an owner is going to collect from someone that they've hired to do design and construction services, or their lower tier parties, subcontractors, other types of design consultants at the end of the project when the work is done. And so what you will see, obviously, at the top of these different forms of lien waiver is their title. You'll see waiver of lien to amount, you'll see waiver of lien to date, and you'll see final lien waiver. But if you dig into the text of those forms of lien waiver, at least in Illinois, at least on private projects, what you're going to find in the fine print is that a waiver of lien to amount is going to say, I'm giving up my right to lien for the amount stated. A waiver of lien to date is going to say, I'm giving up my right to lien for work that I did before the date indicated. And the final waiver of lien is going to say that I am giving up my right to lien for any work that I did before today's date or after today's date because we're done. And while there is no statutory form in Illinois, and that's not true with other states, there are other states where it's included right in their lien act, this is the form of lien waiver. In Illinois, even though there is no specific statutory form, there are some very commonly used forms of lien waiver that would be familiar to most every contractor that you would encounter, certainly those that are reputable, certainly those that are experienced. And it's that form of lien waiver and it's that form of sworn statement, the commonly used ubiquitous ones that you're going to want to stick with. Sometimes I will see on projects a contractor creating their own form. And the problem with that is that it may not marry up with the requirements of the Illinois Lien Act. Because if you collect a sworn statement that doesn't have the right content, or you collect a waiver of lien that doesn't have the right content, it might not serve its purpose under the Illinois Lien Act. And so while there is no official version that is handed down by the Illinois General Assembly, there are some very commonly used forms that any construction attorney or any reputable contractor or any owner that is experienced in design and construction would immediately recognize, and forms that are other types, forms which are of a contractor's own creation, for example, are typically not going to be adequate for me when I represent real estate developers and project owners on Illinois private construction projects.